Good morning. It is May 9th, and this is OSU's Turfgrass Team Times minus some of the team. There is a retreat ongoing for some of the HCS faculty, and they will be here at the next iteration in approximately 2 weeks' time. We've just come through an extremely wet week in the state of Ohio. There may be places with still having standing water, and so that's not a great situation to be in. Now, fortunately, temperatures have not gotten too warm in that intervening period, but that standing water, particularly in heavy clay soils, is going to cut oxygen to the roots, and so the sooner we dry out, the better. Forecast, I think, is for drying weather across the majority of the state. The one thing in northern Ohio this morning was there was some frost still visible in spots. So it's not quite as warm as what we might like. So a little bit of patience on some of that because your turf grasses do like that warmer temperature. And our soil temperatures in northern Ohio currently under 2 inches, so short height of cut, we're reading about 54.8 degrees Fahrenheit. We're just right on the verge of really starting to see a jump in growth. Those of you with bent grasses are probably still kicking rocks a little bit with frustration. Bent grass is notoriously slow to wake up, but we're getting there, folks. Online today, we got Dr. Dave Shetlar, we got Dr. Xiaowei Wu, and we have the inimitable Todd Hicks. Uh, Todd, take it away with the disease news.
Good day, everybody. So far, as Ed said, it's been a weird year. I think that's the highlight of our new T-shirt series for Springs in Ohio. But as far as disease-wise goes, not that exciting for me, which makes it great for you folks. I am starting to see a couple samples floating into the lab where people have been kind of mild on their protection against leaf spot. As Ed said, everything's wet. We've had cold temperatures and fluctuating with some warm temperatures. Remember, we have both kinds of leaf spot in Ohio. One likes cold, one likes warm, and they transfer back and forth as the weather changes. So if you're not protected right now, I suggest you go out and spray for leaf spot the next 2 days because the weather is warming up quickly. We're going to go from daytime highs here in central Ohio from the high 50s, mid 50s to 80 degrees in a couple days. It's a 20-degree shift or better. So you know everything's going to wake up quickly and attack quickly. Remember, we're still very weak. I would guarantee most of you, if you're looking at your roots, are not that happy with what you're seeing. We really didn't recover from last year, went into a hard winter, and went right into a battle this spring. The grass is growing up out of the ground quickly, but our roots aren't really making that much recovery or getting that much depth. So plants are weak. So stuff like dollar spot or any of our other pathogens that wake up this time of year, anthracnose, some of the patches, some of the ring diseases, things like that, you better have something amped up in your program a lot earlier than most of us would plan to cover that, at least for the next week to 10 days. I saw a report coming from the East Coast that they're already seeing dollar spot. I talked to two superintendents yesterday with suspected dollar spot, nothing big. They're just seeing something that's reminding them of it's just trying to crank up and they're going out. So make sure if you're not ramped up and you're not well protected, you're in that I'm just kind of spraying stuff for mild diseases kind of a thing. This is not the time to mess around. You do not want to get behind on diseases this early in the season. And remember, if you are going after a root pathogen, water your fungicide in. And I mean right when you get off the area you spray, not an hour later, not wait for a rain later in the day, right when you get off the area. Make sure the product's going where the problem is. Okay, we're back. I think we had a little bit of recording problems, and I'm not quite sure if I'm going to repeat some of my stuff, but I want to make sure you guys heard me about going after root pathogens. Anything that's down in the soil that you need to get that fungicide down there, you need to water that in as soon as you get done spraying, not an hour later or waiting around for rains in the evening, something like that. Get that stuff down where the problem is, because if you don't, you're going to suffer the consequences later on. You wasted a spray, you'll deal with that problem later on. And the final note is if you do get in trouble and you need some help, then sending in a sample, as a lot of us do. Remember, you can pay for those now online on the Plant Pest Diagnostic webpage. You just go onto the turf area and it's very easy to log in. We finally joined the 21st century. We can use a credit card now and pay for these samples and not have to worry about checks and so forth. So that all gets done on that website. I don't deal with any of that. Make sure you send in a sample form that's filled out as much as you can. The more information you give me, the easier it is for me to kind of work through the problem and figure out what's going on and what I can do to help you. That's all I
Uh,
got for now.
Todd, I did have one question about red thread this week. Is that something that you've seen much of further south?
Not a lot. It's usually, and the funny thing is, I've only heard it from golf courses in the rough areas and places they don't really care about. My feeling is with the high cut folks, it's growing so fast in home lawns and on sports turf that most of the problems are being mowed off quickly, so that inoculum's not getting time to build up. I have a feeling red thread's going to come back, at least for the high cut folks, and really bite them in you know where here in a week or so when we get in that 70-degree mark, and we'll just see the lawns will be flush with it. Because I think like every other bit of turf out there, home lawns are super weak from last year. We just, we basically went into summer, play golf, mess around outside till it snowed. And most places did not get a chance to recover. We didn't have really good recovery weather, super
Right.
dry and everything. And so we actually had a winter this year. It'd have been better if we hadn't had a winter where you could have fertilized through the winter time and maybe grew some roots and so forth. But we didn't have that, and then we just went right into this weird growing pattern when the turf woke up. We haven't had a true spring in my mind this year, so I'm really concerned about what's going to happen come end of May, going into June. I have no idea what the weather's going to do. Hopefully, we've going to have a good weather god and things are going to work out well for us. But if we have any adverse conditions, stuff will just blow up.
Well, we'll hold you to that, Nostradamus Hicks. We'll come back about 6 weeks from now and see what we got. Dr. Wu!
Good morning, everyone. A lot has been going on this spring, just like Todd mentioned, it's a weird weather. Things have been tremendously different from the past. And so this spring, we have been monitoring field size for the annual bluegrass weevil for the monitoring of this past among 4 locations in Ohio. That includes Columbus, Cincinnati, Cleveland, and Tornado areas. So we noticed this big difference between those locations. You can see here, those pictures were taken about 2 weeks ago for the eastern redbud, and on the tornado area was about 2 weeks ago, it was in early bloom, while in Columbus area is in late bloom. And for Fancy at the bottom picture, when Columbus was in about full grain and tornado is about 30 to 50% grain. So there's a big difference among those locations within about 1.5 to 2.5 hour driving distance. And that difference also affected the insect development. So we have noticed a big difference in the development and movement of the pest activities as well. So the annual bluegrass weevil adulticide springtime passed about 2 to 3 weeks ago. And also the peak that was in Columbus and Cincinnati area, that was passed about 2 to 3 weeks ago. In Cleveland and tornado areas is right about passing or already passed in last week and also this week. So if you miss that spray, there's no big worries. And we know that the weather, the Mother Nature maybe not cooperating very well with the springtime, and we have lots of rainfalls and also fluctuating temperatures. And so if you miss the adulticide spray, we can still do something. There are preventive larvicides for treatment of these weevils. And there are a couple of options, including insect growth regulator like Spirato, and the Dimax products, Ferrous, Tetrino, they are all pretty good for the larvae control. And neonicotinoid arena can also provide some level control as well, but only against the The early stars had moderate level control. Another diamide, Saliprin durantis, those can also provide some level of control as well, around 70%, I would say. However, the efficacy can be compromised by the resistance development. Make sure that you're watering with about 1/10 inch post spray. That's very important. So that can help move the insecticides down into the thatch, into the soil profile, have a better control. We see, I was mentioned about the threshold. So you do not spray just because you see 1 or 2 insects, right? You spray because it has the potential to damage your plant. So for ABW larvicide spray, usually when we use a standard turf plugger, about 2.5-inch diameter. If you see 1 or 2 or more than that, that means about 30 to 50 larvae per square foot. If you see more than that, that means you need to spray. If you see very few, there's no need. However, the condition always affected by the turf grass health. If your grass is under stress, and the threshold levels will be reduced. And also for more information about the anti-bluegrass weevil, I will refer you to look at our fact sheet, Ohio 9, and the number is ENT0095. And when we monitor the anti-bluegrass weevil in our P4 traps, we have noticed all kinds of interesting things. You can see earthworms, you can see lots of things. One major thing what I've been noticing recently is the billbugs. So I've been seeing tons of billbugs in our traps, and that means these billbugs are moving out of the overwintering size. And in one of our traps, actually, we found, I think, 15 billbugs in one trap. That's a lot in 1 week. They are definitely moving from the overwintering size. And so I'd say if you have high numbers of billbugs, if you have bluegrass growing, Kentucky bluegrass growing in your lawn, and you may want to consider about spraying a pyrethroid targeting the billbug adults in May. Or you can also do larvicide control using neonicotinoids or diamides targeting the larvae in June. There are different options available, but combo products can target both adults and the larvae. The several options include nactazanoft, triple crown, and Lucian. Those contains bifenthrin, pyrethroid, as well as a neonicotinoid. So pyrethroid targeting the adults, neonicotinoid targeting the larvae. So you can get both. However, you may want to pay attention that if you do a May application, you may miss the preventive grub control in the fall, because usually for lawn care, people tend to apply grub control, meanwhile try to cover other pests as well. So, but remember that grubs are active starting in August. So usually the insecticides have about 2 to 3 months residual. If you apply them earlier than June, you're likely to miss the window for grub control. Another thing is that some turf grass types contain the endophytic fungi. We say endophytic means it's within the plant. So the fungus living with the plant can provide natural suppression of the surface-feeding insects, such as chinchbugs, billbugs, and caterpillars as well. And those usually contained in several grass types like perennial ryegrass, tall fescue, creeping red fescue. So those species can have natural suppression. Some of those diseases can contain those, but if you have those seeds, make sure that you check with the supplier that those contain endophytes on the seeds. Of course, not every seed has endophytes. There's a proportion of those having that. So if you have seeds containing about 40% of endophytes or more, that give you adequate suppression of this above ground pest. Another thing we noticed is the cream flies. So about 2 weeks ago, we started seeing the adult emergence in Cleveland area. And so actually, one of the monitoring side, we have seen up to 6 pupa cases per square foot. There seems to be a lot. However, we did not notice any obvious damage in those areas. So this season, if you see this giant mosquito net, of course they're not mosquito. I always joke about that. They're not mosquito because they don't have the mouth part to bite, to suck the blood. They don't have that. These crane flies usually emerging this time. They are either a marsh crane fly or the native species, but not the annual European crane flies. European crane flies are more damaging. Marsh crane flies are less, and also native species usually do not cause significant damage. So even though we see high numbers here, we do not see significant damage, but it may warrant your attention. Another thing I want to make an announcement is that we're needing a changeback site for our research. And if you don't know them, here's how they look like. They can have short wind and long wind types, and then they have different lympho stages. You can see those white lines in the first few abdominal segments that make them distinct. They're very tiny and can be discovered by putting arena onto your grass and fill it with just water, and they will just float onto the surface. Again, they're very small, and when they start feeding, they will spread out from the center and feeding and cause yellowing and death of the grass. If you have a changeback population, please feel free to contact me, and I will come over help you treat your lawn if you allow me to do the research there for free. Thank you very much, and that's what I have. Here's my contact information.
Thank you, Dr. Wu. Right. Dr. Shetlar.
I wanted to add that this wet weather is approaching the time that our common white grub species, the Japanese beetle and the masked chafers, are beginning to pupate. And we do know from a few years ago when we had saturated soils in mid to late May that many of the pupae drowned. The grubs can move. They can come up to the surface if the soil gets saturated and breathe, but the pupae form these little cells in the soil and they can't move. And if that cell fills up with water, they'll suffocate. And so we're getting kind of close to that. Of course, everybody will ask me, well, are they surviving? Well, I can't tell you until June or July when the adults emerge. If we get lots of adults emerging, they survived. If we get few adults emerging, they didn't survive. What I also want to talk about today are moles. I'm getting inquiries from both homeowners and some of the professionals where their customers are complaining about moles. The one that sort of struck me that ended up on our Ask extension this last week is the homeowner said, I've got moles all over my yard. I've regularly applied grub control and the moles are still here. And I of course, I always have to chuckle. The number one food for moles is earthworms. And what it really means, if you've got a lot of moles, it usually means you've got good soil and a good earthworm population. It doesn't mean that you automatically mean that you've got grubs. Now, we're not going to recommend controls for the earthworms to get rid of the moles, but what we do recommend, there's all kinds of treatments. This homeowner had also invested about $300 in the thumpers and spread those around to thump the soil to chase the moles away. And he said it didn't do anything. Well, we could have told you that these sound devices, the moles are kind of hard of hearing in the first place. But number two, they get used to any unusual sounds and it's not going to scare them away or chase them away or anything like that. There's all these other home remedies like spearmint gum and some of those. There's also these little baits that look like a little gummy worm that's got a toxicant in it that will kill moles if they eat the gummy worm. But the research that I've seen indicates that very few of these baits and toxic worms are actually picked up. What I do recommend, let me see if I can bring it up here, is we do have a professional mole trapper that has made a very good living down in the Cincinnati area, Tom Schmidt. He does have a website. It's called themoleman.com. And he's got, to me, some of the best information on here, including how to trap them. If you go to the mole control page, he talks about all the different types of traps, and then he's actually got information later on how you do the actual trapping and setting up these mole traps to be most effective. But that's really the only reliable technique that I'm aware of to get rid of moles is either trap them yourself. I was kind of surprised when I did put in mole trappers in my search engine. Many of our metropolitan areas have professional mole trappers in them now. And Tom Smith actually lists a lot of those at the end of his website, people that he's talked to and he's worked with, and in some cases he's even trained to trap moles, and it can be very efficient. I've actually, many years ago, I went out with Tom. I was actually amazed at this guy. He has a sort of the sixth sense of where a mole is going to be, and he was setting up traps. And by the time that he was setting up his third trap, the first trap went off, and he had actually trapped a mole on site before even leaving that site. So that's the most effective way. Remember, it's earthworms, it's not grubs, and trapping is the technique you need to use. That's all I've got for this week.
Thank you, Dave. Yeah, catching moles is something that can be a frustrating process for many. I did have a comment this week with our master gardeners about going back to fall and critters and critter damage, and why is one yard getting destroyed and the one beside it is not. And Dave, there's two obvious questions that I asked, and if you want to follow up with that, because I'm sure people are like, how do I recover from this? But obviously the one was, are you irrigating? And two, did you use grub control? And you know, the person who asked the question didn't have any answer for that. But at the same time, those are things that if you are dealing with it now, be aware that as Dave likes to tell us, and Shoei likes to tell us, the more comfortable it is for the insect, the more likely they're going to lay an egg in it, right? And so those critters will show up in a lot of places for a lot of different reasons. Okay, folks, with that, we will let you go. We will be back in 2 weeks, and then we'll probably be able to start into weekly updates. A couple of minor notices to make note of. The ATI Golf Scholarship outing is on September 29th. Early August is going to be our OTF Field Day once again. There's also an OSFMA event in Columbus, and there's one also in September in Worcester. I believe that's September 9th. So events starting to come up on the calendar. Pay attention to those notifications when they start to come out. I also noticed that for the chapters, the GCSAA chapters, they are working on their golfing competitions. And so if you're somebody who's into the golf side of it, make sure and sign up for those events. It is your community and your industry. The more you can do to get involved, the better. Finally, any chemicals mentioned or chemistries mentioned, if you've not used them before, you're considering using them, you don't carry a professional applicator's license, please reach out to us with questions and considerations. The handling of these products does require considerable observation of safety and making sure that you're doing the right thing. So if you've not used any of these products previously, please reach out to us at buckeyeturf@osu.edu. Thank you, and we'll talk to you all soon.